right, today is World Autism Day, and charitable organization Autism Ontario is encouraging you to wear tie-dye to celebrate the spectrum.
This campaign aims to teach people about how autism and how we can make our communities more inclusive for those on the spectrum and their families. So joining us live this morning for more on this Wellness Wednesday is the CEO of Autism Ontario, Margaret Spolstra. Margaret, thanks so much for coming in this morning. It's so important to talk about this, but I want to start by this year's campaign, which is Celebrate the Spectrum. What is behind this, and how can people get involved today?
Yeah, so today is World Autism Day, and as a result, we want, as Autism Ontario, to run a campaign that really speaks about diversity, supports inclusion, and makes Ontario a better place for all autistic people and their families.
How is Ontario doing at that, Margaret? Because, I mean, we constantly, report on stories of either families or large groups of people either protesting government or petitioning the government to do better for children on the spectrum, or anybody really on the spectrum here. But it seems like it's never enough, and it never seems to be going far enough or helping enough. How would you assess where we are in this province at this point?
I'd say we've made a lot of progress over many years and multiple governments, but there's still a long way to go. I think right now is a particularly challenging time, particularly in education. But one of the biggest challenges are being on waiting lists and waiting for services when, as a parent, you know how your child can grow and learn, and that the supports are there, but they're not quite accessible. So we need further investment in that to get people off those waiting lists so they're diagnosed early, have access to supports that make a difference in their learning. And also as they exit high school and become adults where they live the majority of their lives.
Yeah, and that really is key. Speaking anecdotally, my nephew has autism, and because he was on a waiting list for so long, my brother, his wife, took their own initiative to get him to speech therapy, to do all these things, and it really has improved his learning and his speech and everything. So it's quite crucial to get access to these supports.
Absolutely.
I also want to touch on, maybe you can break down some of the myths and misconceptions about autism.
Yeah, I think the most important thing to know is that it's a spectrum. And that just means that there is a wide range of expression in autism. So no two people are the same. We have a saying that we use: when you've met one person on the spectrum, you've met one person on the spectrum. And that just means that for a day like today, celebrating that diversity and wearing tie-dye, as you mentioned, is really a representation of autism in all of its facets. Many colors, many ways to express oneself. No two people are the same. And so I think one of the things that people often think is that someone is just like a character on television that they've seen, that a person with autism isn't interested in social relationships, or that it's part of only a childhood story, when it's part of that person's very self there. And so that makes a huge difference. And those are the myths that we want to bust on a day like today, and really think about that diversity.
So beyond wearing tie-dye, for example, Margaret, what else could people do to sort of better understand the myths and better overcome the misconceptions?
Yes. So I think one of the best things you can do is to educate yourself. Go to our website, autismontario.com. Look at the Celebrate the Spectrum. There are tons of resources there where people can find out very quickly some key facts about autism, that 1 in 50 people, 1 in 50 children in Ontario are affected, and that your neighbors are autistic people, are children or adults with autism, and that we really want to make sure that you're aware that it's part of what it means to be human.
And for, let's say new parents of young children, sometimes, things are not easy to tell. Like, is this part of being a 3-year-old, or what is quote unquote normal versus do I need to get my child diagnosed? How easy is that process? And when do you advise, parents to seek more help?
As soon as possible. As soon as they're seeing their child not achieve those developmental milestones. As soon as you see that child may not be talking, may not be socializing with you in the way that children do, where you have shared attention, and the kids aren't doing that with the adults. And so I think those are always good questions. And it may not be autism, but you may find that there's intervention and supports available once you speak to your doctor and to your pediatrician and to get that diagnosis.
Yeah, and clearly Autism Ontario is a great resource. Margaret, thank you so much for being here this morning. I appreciate you sharing this.
Thank you so much.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
All right. And we have more CB24 for breakfast coming up right after this quick break. Stick around. Thanks, Margaret. Really nice to talk to you.